Coach, it's been a little while. You just came here from the banquet. I appreciate you running right over. I'm curious about that first. Was it nice to have a chance with a lot of your fans just to look back at what the season was?
It was a great experience. Obviously, finishing where we finished and the way we finished. Some of it has to do with not having Dean and seeing him in a boot still, and having the parents that have traveled everywhere with us this summer be at the banquet too.
Yep.
It was just a good finish to the season, and we got the chance to make jokes at each other and laugh at guys and talk about some of the fun times, and just really talk about how fun it was to go through this. Not always fun during it, but when the ride was over and you got a chance to sit back and think about what we accomplished this season with this team, it was a lot of fun. We got a chance in a media talk to some of the guys before the banquet started, and something I said to Grant was it was nice to see. Last time I saw them was after the Loyola game, and they were obviously hurting, and they're still stinging by it. But it was nice to see that they've come a little bit to where they can appreciate what they've accomplished more than just focusing on the one game they didn't win. Right. It was hard, obviously, to think where you were and what you were on the cusp of obtaining and getting to, and then as coaches, that's where our convention is. So we lose and then turn right around and have to go to San Antonio for the NABC Convention along with the Final Four. And this year I made it a point to go. Because I don't always go to the game. Most times I just get my ticket to one of the GAs and let them go experience it. And just sitting there watching, thinking, man, that could be us playing Michigan, and then the championship game, that could be us playing Villanova. You always think about that. What if? And what if we had Dean? And what if this or that? But for our guys to do what they did without him and to stand up and fight and knock off Kentucky, and that's something I'll never forget as a coach. That's the game I wanted to ask about, because we talked after the UMBC win, but the Kentucky win, you hate to overstate things, but it could have been the biggest win in the history of the program, or one of the biggest wins. You guys, with 92 seconds left, were down one and had 5 guards on the floor against that team. How amazing was the effort to win that game in that arena too, with the kind of crowd that was there for Kentucky? It was definitely Blue Nation. Blue Nation was definitely in the building. They were right behind us. Those dudes were yelling at us, and you're just sitting there thinking, how can they get tickets like right behind our bench? Why aren't our fans there? But it's a program win. It's a program win when you beat Kansas. Everybody knows that. And there's so many people that have played against Kentucky. So many people, who wore K-State jerseys and never beat them, and it meant a lot to our players to give that game to Ernie, more than anything, because they know how hurt he still is to this day you can tell about that game. So to see how they responded and reacted with him in the locker room after the game was priceless. Tons of guys contributed in that game, but I have 2 I want to ask about. One would be maybe a little bit. Xavier's the obvious one. I'll start with him. 22 and 9, hit so many big shots in that game for you guys. He had a great tournament, but the Kentucky game, I thought, was the culmination of everything he'd been building towards. Right. I think we get away from him if he's not in foul trouble, because they had no answer for him. Right. And he was obviously playing a real power forward in that game, and just fighting and battling, and offensively his shot came back, and he's a streaky shooter. He knows that. We know that. If he ties that together and plays with a high level of confidence and goes to the rim like he was doing in the Kansas game and in the rest of the tournament, where he was getting to the rim instead of settling for jumpers all the time, the sky's the limit for him and us with him playing that way. Barry, we have to talk about, but I'm curious your thoughts on Cam Stokes in that game. He didn't have huge numbers, but I think he played 38, 39 minutes, didn't turn it over, guarded, it seemed like everybody on the floor for them at some point. Was it rewarding to see him, who he dealt with so much, have a good game in that one for you guys? It was great, because Cam is competitive, and Cam is a scorer at heart. Yeah. And when you don't score, it's so hard to motivate yourself sometimes being that type of player. But motivation from Kentucky itself was enough, and knowing that, he was on the floor basically the whole game, so his leadership and contributing on, there was times he looked up, he was guarding, 6'9" dude. PJ Washington. He was and he stole the ball from him, and he posted him up in front of the post and just made a play, and gave us a chance to, win the game. So the next man up is all those guys have talked about, and that's how they've been raised up from the beginning of the time that those three guys have gotten here, and they've taught it to our younger guys.
I'm curious, you mentioned watching, Michigan and Loyola, and I know you hate to make excuses, but was it hard not to watch, Michigan with their stretch four out there who made so many matchup problems? I was
so mad.
Yeah.
I was just sitting there like, oh, that's a Dean shot. That's,
right.
You're just furious because the things that he does, they can't guard.
Right.
And we knew, our advantage guy we didn't have. So, and injuries are a part of sports, and we look at it that way, and it's, it's terrible. But we grew a lot from that game, and we grew up, from that game. And to move forward, we know Gene's going to be a special dude next year. Fully healthy, him, Barry coming back, and obviously X, and Cam, and Cartier, and Mike, all those guys, and Mac, and just a core group of guys, Levi James, and all those guys coming back. It's fun because we can sit there and aren't saying how are we going to replace that guy.
Right.
Oh, he's coming back. But it's a point where you can't get arrogant about it, and you can't take it for granted. And Coach told him today 3H is humble, hungry, and have humility about yourself, and
right.
don't go about this the wrong way. Because it can be so easy to think we're going to get back there and beyond just by showing up next year, and that's not the approach.
You mentioned everyone coming back, and I think like everyone is. Barry put his name in the draft, but the way he talks, he's doing it just to get the information and that kind of stuff. But we've talked in these settings. You've always been really, positive about the idea of kids doing that. You think that's a good thing for a guy like Barry or people
Absolutely.
to test this out?
I mean, it's great for him. Barry's got to have our full support.
Right.
Because the one thing that Bruce believes in, happy players play hard for you.
Right.
And you can tell our guys love being around each other. They love being around us. And I think obviously these forums with me talking and telling people to look for this basically in our team help, because I don't think in the beginning people didn't understand what we're about. There still was a lot of negativity.
Of course.
But I appreciate you guys giving me the chance to tell them what it really is.
Yeah.
And hey guys, look, our guys really love playing for the head ball coach.
Right.
Which is not all kids do. I mean, it's just a reality of the nature of sports today. And you can tell he likes coaching them, and they allow him to coach them to the fullest, and us to push them, and that's not always easy when you have a team, especially when you have two guys average close to 20 in the league, and have at times people got to fall behind, and it's their show. Sometimes it's hard for X to get into third, go be third guy,
Right.
But now he's learned I can be an alpha dog with these guys, and that was crucial when Dean was out.
As you look to next year, you talked about how important it is to, the H's you mentioned, but to stay humble and do it the right way, and not to assume, because Grant and I talk about it like you guys could be great next year, and it'd be really hard to get to the Elite Eight. All that said, is this as excited as you've been thinking about a future season? Is any time you can remember in your career? Or?
Well, the last time I felt like this was we had just lost to Duke, and we were at Illinois, and we had everybody back, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna be pretty good. And then a couple days later, I'm a head coach, so I didn't get to be a part of the national championship run that they went on. But that's how I felt with that group, because I knew what the leadership was about, and I knew the hearts in that locker room. Our hearts are the same, man.
Right.
They beat like one. Those dudes love each other. They approach each day with the type of camaraderie that you need to be a successful team, and that's why the future, we're so excited about it.
You mentioned just the camaraderie and being a group and that kind of stuff. A guy who at least struck me as an outsider as being part of that was Memo Sala. He didn't play a lot of minutes, but he always came off to us as a good teammate, invested, and obviously the news came out that he's going to go look to somewhere where he can get some more minutes. But what can you say to the fans about what he did for you guys that maybe they didn't see, behind the scenes a little bit?
Well, first off, when you think of what college sports is supposed to be, student athlete, he's a tremendous student, tremendous human being. It didn't work out. He didn't play as much as he wanted, and with how it is in the atmosphere and in the about transferring and all that stuff, and do coaches make kids leave? When you see a kid like that, we're loaded up there. Like we're pretty good up front, and Dean's not coming out. Like, let's just be honest. He's only coming out when, when he asks. So.
Right.
But, and that's a credit to him, and he's mature enough. Sometimes people stay and don't play, and then 10 years criticize the coaches for not playing them.
Right.
He didn't do that. He said, you know what, Coach, will you guys release me because I really want to have a chance to go somewhere and play a lot in my last year. And obviously, Coach is a great guy. He let him do it.
Right. And then that does add, too, you guys, I think Bruce Weber has talked to him about this, and I think we have off camera. Has it changed a little bit from a recruiting perspective to where maybe the first half of the season up to the last, you had to, I'm sure you're still really active contacting kids, but now maybe you have some guys, whether they are transfers or recruits, coming to you guys a little bit more?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that it's why sometimes enrollment jumps at universities, because people see them in the NCAA tournament.
Right.
And, players have seen us, and they see how Coach Weber will let you rock out if you're pretty
right.
good. Excuse my cough. He'll let you hoop, and that's to his credit. And a lot of people see that, and a lot of people see how he interacts with their players in times when you're mad and you're coming out. Coach will snatch you up and hug you. Like, you don't want to hug him, but
right.
It kind of diffuses the situation, and you're like, okay, Coach, all right, I'm calm now. But kids see that, and they want that. They want a personal relationship with the people that coach them, and you would think that's the way it is everywhere, but it's not.
I'm curious, as you go into the off season, Grant and myself and Jeff kind of joked in our last show about we kind of assumed you guys maybe do have exit interviews or that kind of thing. You talk about stuff they're going to work on in the off season. Is that accurate? I mean, do you bring them in and give them like specifics on parts of their game they're going to work on and that kind of thing?
Well, we tell them what we think they should work on, but Coach always asks them first.
Right.
He's always going to ask them, what do you think you need to work on? Where do you want your game to grow? How do you think you can help us get better?
Right.
And then we always meet as a staff before he meets with them individually. And Coach gets the sheet out and says, Wade, what does he need to do? And we'll talk about some things we think Dean needs to get better at. And, then when he gets in his meeting, his one-on-one meeting with Dean, he goes over that stuff, and and that's a good thing, because you got to have feedback. Because you can't let a player go off the summer with them thinking, does Coach care about me? Does he?
Sure.
You got to have them go off being happy, like thinking, man, Coach is really going to push me next year to get better. This is not the final me. I came in here this way. I progress to this each year. It's your, like you said, it's your exit interviews. It's your interview. It's your stuff that helps you build as a person, as a player, as a student. And that's a good thing.
And I guess the last thing about that is, out of last year's group, you didn't see him during the offseason and whatnot. What player was the most different that came back? Was it? I mean, Barry comes to mind or whatever. But who made the biggest jump last offseason? I guess, and how did they do that?
Well, if you know Barry, he knew he was really good. Anyway,
Right.
Barry thinks he's the best.
Right.
So we knew he's going to be good, and we didn't know he had the moxie to carry us in games like that. We knew he was going to be a good player. But when you talk about Dean, you go from 9 to whatever, and to be
18 in conference games,
a dominant force like he was, and talk trash and want the ball, shoot the ball.
Yeah.
Those things. That's only confidence. That's only confidence in the coach trusting you to take and make those shots. Like when he's a freshman, we talked about tonight, the Texas game defined him in his young career. He was nervous. He looked around, shot it at the buzzer. Now, if somebody's in front of him and that, he's getting a bucket or he's getting fouled at this present time. So, his mental is different. His maturity is different. His leadership's different. His approach. And you got to have that, especially if he's wanting to be an NBA player.
Yeah.
And he's wanting to take us where we want to go. He has to continue to change.
To wrap it up, Coach, earlier you said thanks to us for doing this, but I know we thanked you in Charlotte. I forget where it was, but we really do appreciate it. The people who watched it do too, because they aren't used to having somebody, give them this kind of access to the program and this kind of information. So I know they really appreciate it, and so do we. And hopefully we can find some time, whether it's after a signing day or where it makes sense to get you back and talk more about this, before we wait all the way till next season starts.
Okay.
So, yep. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thanks.